The following is a presentation of the Force Center podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the Force Center podcast feed, and this particular episode is a deep dive. We're going to dive deep into a big, soothing, cool pool of Bacta to talk about lightsaber fights. I maybe went a little overboard describing the Bacta because it's real hot in Los Angeles where Ken and I are recording. We're happy to be here to talk about lightsabers. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Kat Knapsack. That Bacta is cool. I'd love to just dip my feet in it right about now. Heal the feet, cool me down. It is one of those days. And, fans create noise. So you have to record in not only silence, you have to record in heat. But, hey, we're heroes is what we're saying. We're brave in the heat to talk about Star Wars now. This is going to be a lot of fun. And this lightsabers fight series, as we get into it, and you're going to explain what we're talking about, it isn't just about Bacta. It's also about Led Zeppelin riffs. If you recall that meme, that's been playing in my head all morning.
Understandably so. So yeah, listen, listeners, for audible sweat drops, depending on how long we go, as we get into the magic of lightsaber fights, part 7. We are discussing the lightsaber fights of The Last Jedi. But before we begin, we want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/forcecenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week, we are continuing to recommend Padawan by Kirsten White. It is a great Obi-Wan adventure, a very young Obi-Wan adventure. If you want to give that a listen, you can download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/forcecenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/forcecenter for your free audiobook. It helps us, and hey, you get some free Obi-Wan Kenobi in your ears. Give it a shot. All right, Ken, are you ready to get into these Last Jedi fights, battles, duels? ?
I am. Ta-da! Yeah, that's a bad Led Zeppelin riff. That's a bad one.
Now, I think I know the meme you're talking about, but remind me of the meme.
The meme was you take the clip of Rey and Kylo going back to back, slow motion, and then I think it was the Led Zeppelin riff first, and then people just start adding any song to it, and everyone seemed to work.
Yeah, it must be just shot at the right tempo that a solid, steady beat lines up, because a lot of them lined up. I remember a couple of them didn't, but
yeah. As the meme moves on.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
It's in my head. I was watching it all morning. I just kept hearing all these songs in my brain.
You are a true disc jockey. You can't look at a lightsaber fight without syncing up the music.
That's so true.
If you are just catching this episode, we've been doing a series now where we look at lightsaber fights because they are such a key part of the thrill, the fun action adventure, and the core mythological character-based themes of Star Wars that we've discussed, all the original trilogy duels, all the prequel battles, and we are in the middle of the sequel showdowns. This episode, we're diving into the unconventional battles of The Last Jedi, including Rey and Kylo versus Snoke's Praetorian Guards, and Kylo versus Luke's projection, and arguably Kylo's own hubris. Ken, big picture, how do you feel that the two major lightsaber battles in The Last Jedi are not necessarily straightforward duels between 2 to 3 characters? Obviously, it's not lightsaber on lightsaber in the Praetorian Guard, and a lot of people make the distinction that Luke isn't actually physically there. It's projection. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, to those people, I say, yeah, good point. Good point. No, sorry. I have come to understand the complaints, and I acknowledge them. And what I mean by that is you can even hear my voice. I'm defensive. I'm ready to fight. We spent most of late 2017 and 2018 just yelling at each other at the dinner table. Not you and I, Jennifer, but just the Star Wars fandom, right? And there was actually a fight, not a physical fight, of course, a verbal dispute, we'll say, debate over this in an old office I worked in, where just someone was just so convinced that the only true fight that was in this movie was a stupid stick fight. And man, I did that. My scales went up, and it turned into a debate. And so once that all kind of settled in, I understand where it comes from, and I acknowledge what's going on. But I love these two duels and consider them lightsaber fights.
Yeah, not surprisingly, I agree that they're lightsaber fights since we were covering them in our episodes about lightsaber fights. I'm the same way. I acknowledge that they are different, and anybody who would watch this film, any Star Wars fan, and say, I really prefer more traditional duels, well, that's totally understandable. I understand we all have preferences. I kind of like to acknowledge that they're very different, and I think the variety is good. I think if this was like, this is the new trajectory of all lightsaber fights, they all have a little twist like this, I would maybe have a different thought, but this is just one film. And I think that it's really good to have variety. I think in the big picture for me, I love The Last Jedi, but I do think The Last Jedi puts more emphasis on myth and theme than the sort of pulpy adventure serial. And I think that goes to kind of the pacing and the tone and even the structure of the fights. And I wouldn't want that for every Star Wars film, but I don't mind it at all for one particular Star Wars film. And I think for The Last Jedi, it really made a good impression because the Rey and Kylo against the guards was such a nice surprise, right? There's the meme in the discussion about in the criticism where people say Rian Johnson is just subverting expectations to subvert them. I don't think that's what the film is doing. I think the film is questioning big ideas of Star Wars only to have them validated at the end. But I think within the film, he is using expectations to surprise us. We expected a Rey and Kylo fight, so we're surprised to see them fight together. And for me, it was a pleasant surprise, right? Luke spends the entire film saying, I am not going to do that. And then you're just like, you're watching, you're like, he is doing it. And he doesn't have the right lightsaber. What is going on? And in the first viewing of both of these, it successfully surprised me, not by subverting expectations in some childish way, but actually playing with expectations to create surprise. So I think I appreciate both of the fights for what they are and for kind of the freshness that they did bring to the first viewing.
Yeah, absolutely. I really agree with that. And also, again, I want to acknowledge just everything around it. I just think eventually there was too many arguments about it and became exhausting on a lot of levels. But as everything kind of dies down again, I'll repeat, like I understand the discussion, but I really stand strong in the idea that it wasn't just to be cute or a subversion of what of Star Wars itself. It was so thematic. You're so right. These are big theme fights. It's almost what you call it. And I think they're also both choices that came from a love of some of the big duels before this film. The throne room showdown aspect is very clear. Johnson and his team have said that this idea of what if Praetorian guards, that's kind of like what if the royal guards were fighting, like that's come a few times. And this idea of older heroes making a last stand for this big purpose of moving the next generations forward, like that's Kenobi stuff from New Hope. Like so it comes from a real love and understanding of Star Wars, and it did surprise me. And we're going to talk about first impressions, but people have different reactions to it. I'll say this: in working on that book I wrote, the Why We Love Star Wars, I got like a big email debate with editors over this. And I wrote about this scene, and they ended up making some right calls to force me to rewrite this essay about this a little bit to folks.
But which fight?
The Rey and Kylo versus the Praetorian Guards, and I had said something in here about how kind of was a little bit of a surprise angle, and the note was like, we were never surprised. We were never surprised, and this one particular editor was really upset. We were never surprised. I knew the whole time he was going to kill Snoke. I was like, that's not what I was talking about the surprise. It was kind of where it happened in the film. It was about what was going on, what is it saying, and that kind of surprise. Not that this the killing of the Snoke early in the film, like that was a surprise from a certain point of view, just overall. And I know a lot of people don't love that either, but. Anyways, this film continues to inspire conversations. Let's just say that. But at the end of the day, I really think it was done with great purpose.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that there's always been this sense of Last Jedi of like absolute reverence for Star Wars of let's get our action figures out and play. So I've never taken any effort at surprise or a different perspective or a different twist is anything thumbing its nose at Star Wars. And I know some people feel that way, but I don't personally. And I also want to be sure to say, it's one thing to talk about, hey, Rey and Kylo versus a Praetorian Guards isn't lightsaber on lightsaber. Okay, that's not a duel per se. Luke and Kylo is a duel.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it's a return to the absolute roots of what a sword duel is. You know, it is so much rooted in like the classic film Kurosawa duels. So I want to be sure to acknowledge that as well, that it might be a little bit of a twist on what we've seen in Star Wars, but it is really harkening back to what Star Wars itself was inspired by.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And they're just so big parts of this film and the story. It makes a lot of sense. I'm sure there might even be some people yelling at us, but you tried to cut out Grievous and Kenobi from Sith, and we ended up talking about it. But that has a different feel to it. It's about different things. Where this is a duel in many ways. Both of these.
Yeah. No, yeah, the souls are on display, so let's get into it. Rey and Kylo versus the Praetorian Guards. After defying his master Snoke and cutting him apart, Kylo sends the Skywalker blade into Rey's outstretched hand. Rey and Kylo then launch into a battle against Snoke's 8 Praetorian Guards, who are no longer guarding, but more avenging. We'll discuss. The fight begins at around 1 hour and 44 minutes. It is intercut with a scene of the resistant transports being blown away, Finn confronting DJ, and finally, Kylo ends this fight by finishing the last guard at 1 hour and 47 minutes. And then, there's some dialogue, too. So, Ken, what are your current feelings on this fight, and have they changed over the years?
Well, I am sad to report for maybe some of the audience, my love for this sequence has only gotten stronger over the years. It's still one of my favorite sequences in Star Wars. That's all of Star Wars, the saga. And it is, to me, a lot to do with the symphony of action coming to a fine point from all the things in this sequence, the Finn, the Rey, the Holdo, all that stuff is kind of coming together, and it just makes this entire section feel bigger. But I love the throne room setting. I love what happens in there, and the look of the feel of this fight is both like this beautiful art piece and a loud rock show. Again, going to what a lot of people turned it into. It is that, and we always talk about our cheer moments in the theater, right? We Yoda coming into the fight with Dooku and all this stuff. Rey catching that blade, her standing, the slow motion back-to-back shot was this like 3-part harmony of applause. In my first couple viewings, because I saw, was fortunate to go to the premiere. That was a different experience, and then a general audience, the reaction was the same. I was even at the Directors Guild, like my third or fourth viewing. The reaction was the same. It's just ooh like that worked every time in the early days. So I love it. So again, the only thing that's probably changed is I just dig it even more.
Yeah. No, I really loved it then. And I still love it now. I think I appreciate it. I really appreciated it then. And there are other like kind of little moments that I appreciate even more as it goes on. But I think it's such an applause moment because of the Snoke and the catch and the music pumping up, and the look between Rey and Kylo of like, we're doing this, right? We're fighting back to back, which, we'll talk about more. I think it is one thing that works for me because The Last Jedi isn't as fast and furious with the action set pieces as some Star Wars, that it's this explosion from like, we're kind of getting the groove of a deep indie film with a little bit of action here and there. And here's this huge explosion, right? Everything builds to it. And it's this explosion of surprising, beautiful, visceral action.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, it's effective to me because it truly feels like Rey and Kylo are fighting for their lives, that they are facing the immediate consequences of their actions. So I think I always appreciate it from like, this doesn't feel like, we're just going through the motions, got to do a fight. It feels like I am there with Rey and Kylo in every second of the fight.
Yeah.
I also feel like, exactly what Rian Johnson has said in interviews. The Praetorian Guards were very clearly, in their design and in their function, a riff on the Emperor's Royal Guard that, you and I both had action figures of back in the early 80s and stared at and went like, what if they ever fought? What did they got to poke somebody with those things, right? And, I know they do in the EU, but it was really fun to see that in action, to see the actual Royal Guards in action. And I think the thing that I've always appreciated, but my appreciation has grown to me, this fight is one of those moments where it is absolutely elevated space fantasy. It is two people with laser swords fighting a bunch of guards with weird, almost over the top, like electro whips, you know?
Yeah.
And yet it is entirely relatable because it's this very specific tension when something deep and weird and surprising happens in an intimate relationship, but you can't deal with it right now. You got to deal with this other public thing first. And that's so, to me, like the look between Rey and Kylo of like, are we doing this? Like, it feels like they both want to talk, right? You know, it feels like, you just agreed to start dating someone, but now you immediately need to go to work.
Dinner tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, dinner tomorrow, and we'll talk about what this actually meant, or like even like a kiss, and then well, okay, but now we can't talk about what that meant. You know, that's the way this fight feels to me, and it gives it this really interesting emotion.
I love that. Especially there's some looks that Kylo has right before it really breaks off, where he's kind of looking at the guards like, all right, yeah, okay, we got to do this too. Okay, got it.
We want to talk about our feelings, but I guess we need to fight for our lives first. Yeah. I think my biggest change over the years is I've always enjoyed Rey's energy in this fight, which we'll talk about more in the big scream. And I even remember talking about it on Force Center long before Rise of Skywalker came out. But I really enjoy watching Rey's anger, her primal scream. Now that we have Rise of Skywalker and know that is something that she is thinking about, that she is wrestling with, of how much anger does she have in her soul, given all of the rough things she's experienced in life. And it's really fun to watch this and like, a lot. She feels a lot of anger.
A lot. Yeah. She's letting out some stuff, some primal scream therapy from the early 70s going on here right now.
That is right. She is screaming to Zeppelin. There we go.
There you go. Little Lennon cold turkey in there too.
Nice. So let's analyze what's going on with these characters. This is a very different fight. So for you, what's at stake? Why are the characters fighting? What is victory for them? Let's start with, the guards. Why are they fighting? What's victory for them?
I love the guards there. I love that. Yeah, we're going to discuss that. There's this overall. It's funny, that's a great. You subverted my expectations of the questioning there. So I started with them. You just said this overall theme in your previous segment there that I loved, which is the immediate consequences of choices, right? And your actions. And Star Wars we always say Star Wars is about choices. We put on our professor glasses. Star Wars is about choices. And here's a sequence that's like, cool, you made some choices. Deal with it. The Praetorian Guards have made some choices, and that includes delayed action. Delayed action, and I love that. But also it's part of the theme. Look how cool they are, and yeah, they're right. They're a little awkward and there's some helmets I'd want to wear versus other helmets if I was a Praetorian Guard. We also know a little bit more of the details that revealed in visual dictionaries and stuff that they're in pain in those outfits. There's a constant stream of pain. So it's this. You look badass. You are badass. You got some skills. You got some weapons, and you have decided to stand there silently. And you could argue they didn't necessarily do their protection job really well. So it becomes, as you said, an avengement here, and an Avenger, a Dark Avengers team right here. And I know there are the Dark Avengers. I understand that. So anyways, I think that is at stake. What's at stake for them is their pride, maybe shame, and avenging the loss of the one they're to protect.
Yeah, no, I think it is. It's punishment. It might be their motivation, but I think it's also about proving their worth. And maybe about halfway through the fight, self-defense.
Yep. Oops. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Trying to live through it. No, I really love this picture of, this projection of strength, but also fear from Snoke, right? One of the things I love about the sequel trilogy and Last Jedi in particular is obviously Snoke and the First Order have a ton of power. Rey kind of can't do anything. He invades her mind. It's visceral. It's horrible. He has all this power. But it is also about fear. It's everything is about, we got to run Luke Skywalker down, because if he even smiles, 800 Jedi will be born. Yeah. And everyone in the galaxy will have hope. It's so fear-based. And there's something about the guards of like, okay, I'm on my huge, impressive, impossible to attack ship, right?
Yeah.
then I'm in my inner sanctum of my, well defended ship. I myself am an incredibly powerful force user, and I still have 8 people standing around as my guards. It's just like I feel like the Praetorian Guards must have this perspective of like, we are the last line of defense. We are trained for anything. We are on high alert, and we just blew it.
Yeah. Oops.
Right. I mean, I think there's that great moment where they're so hyper alert, right? Where Kylo just stands aggressively when talking to Snoke earlier.
Yeah.
Snoke easily defends himself with his bouncing his little dark side lightning off the floor, and they're already out there with their weapons, right? Like somebody sneezes wrong and they're out with their weapons, and somehow they just got caught with their red armor pants down on this one.
Light whips flapping in the wind, indeed. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, no, it becomes almost a job. Justifying your job.
Yep,
it's an interview. They're meeting with the Bobs from the Office Space film there.
Yeah, it's just really
you say you do here.
What is it? So if you defend Snoke, tell me about all the pieces he's in. Yeah. And it says something about, too, that they're not just like the rest of the first. Kylo lies, obviously, about what happened there, but you get the sense that, the first story is just going to pivot to the next leadership role, right? And there's no sense of that, of like, oh, hey, Kylo, I guess you're the boss now. Right.
Yeah.
Like, he's got to go. He's got to go. To me, it speaks to their loyalty to Snoke, their training, but also the like, we need to get our worth back by at least killing this guy who killed the boss that we totally failed to defend.
Yeah. Then Hux can take over, and we'll really need to protect him. So
we will need to protect the heck out of him. Yeah, for sure. So let's I want to start here with Kylo and Rey, and then we can go where you want. I want to discuss them individually, of course.
Yeah.
But I think there's something interesting in this fight that they are very much in sync, in my opinion. I think they both have just the kind of absolute surface level of what's their motivation. It's not die initially, right? It's just survival. There's a consequence to taking out Snoke. These guards are coming for them. Either they're going to fight for their lives or they're not. But I think in their fight, they're both in this place where right beyond this fight in their mind is their heart's desire, right?
Yeah.
In this fight, they're still in that space where they both read a truth from one another's minds or perceived truth, but they have misinterpreted what that's going to mean to one another's choice of action. And they're in this beautiful moment of we're in sync and both thinking like, if we can get through this fight, we just kissed, but after we both have to go to work, then we can talk about our relationship, And I think that's really fascinating that they're fighting to survive, but they're also fighting because right on the other side of surviving is what they truly want.
It is almost, if this was a rom-com, this would be like some awkward, cute scene where they're both talking about different things, but they think they're talking about the same thing, right? And they get to the end of the dinner, and you didn't want to go to Paris. No, I was talking about Mexico City. Oh my gosh! Oh, how awkward. Yeah,
Paris, Texas. Oh, I misread this relationship.
Yeah, and it's signals crossed, but I love what you're saying. It's such a key point of there's truths in both of them, and they're definitely picking up on it. And again, this is a fight about decisions. Most fights you might say are, but yeah, it's what's on the other end of it. Let's survive to get to that shared goal, right? And then they both get to that, and like, oopsie, no. And I think it's Rey's. You read her face. More clearly on, yeah, I missed that one. Okay, got it. I'm breaking it down in a simple fashion, but I think you're right. I think it's what's on the other end collectively.
Yeah, and I mean, I think obviously we've talked a lot about how this throne room encounter is coded with a knowledge of Star Wars to read like the Return of the Jedi scene down to a couple specific shots and beats, right? And you do have the reaction of, what is this ultimate scene from the third movie doing in, the end of the second act of the second movie, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's partially to get us in Kylo and Rey's mindset, because I think their misinterpretations make them both think this is about to be over, the whole thing, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kylo thinks if Rey will come with him, well, that's it. He's going to finish crushing the measly resistance and we're done. And Rey thinks Kylo's going to turn and be the hero the Resistance needs, and the First Order is going to crumble. It'll be great.
I really applaud that take on it. I really love that, especially the shots of the fleet. Right, it's almost like you hear Palpatine in the background going, "Once again, we're watching the fleet. So this time, it's going to go well." And how it's not just the audience; it's the characters. They obviously the characters haven't watched Star Wars, but it has a lot of this third act, third film climactic vibe to it. And you're right. You get the other end of it, and it's almost just begun for the both of them. And that's what I find particularly powerful about the ending of the fight and the overall vibe.
Yeah. I mean, you got the elevator shot, the binders coming off of Rey, and very similar to Luke, all sorts of stuff that codes it that way. But you're right. It is not about the audience. It's about the characters. So what are your thoughts then on either Kylo and Rey together or individually? What's at stake for them, what they're specifically fighting for?
Yeah, well, looking at Kylo, breaking it apart there, and by all means, we can bounce back to the team. But looking at Kylo, he's so fractured, right? We know this. It runs all the way through him. But at this point, I think he's fighting for his identity. I think he makes a choice in this fight going in. The beginning of this fight, he just makes this choice. He makes it going in and kind of confirms it through his maybe perceived victory in his mind. Again, they both get to the end and yay, we've won. And it's not the case. I've always looked at it as he becomes Kylo Ren in this moment. And now everything after in the story is a threat to this choice. To me, everything is this like I've wanted to be this. I'm Kylo, and that that continues, right? We know that his journey isn't over, but again, going to your point, he thinks I made this choice, and now everything after, including Palpatine showing back up, means I better put my helmet back on because he's threatening my choice. My choice is I become Kylo. I become what I want. I become myself in a way. And he, this is a character who's tired of the legacies he's supposed to live up to. He's tired of people telling him what he should be. Who he's the next version of. He's also tired of his soul pulling him back, right? I think that's a pledge. And I think it was Jennifer that said this early on in 2018. I love this when she had said something. I can't remember the exact quote, but he's definitely tired of people making him take his damn mask off. Like Jennifer, like anyone who's told him that, he's killed. Like
all his dad figures, yeah.
Yeah, and it's key to note he starts this sequence in the elevator answering to Ben. He's staring off. He's kind of, and then she's like, Ben, and he kind of looks over, and then this ends with her yelling Ben. And as I always love saying, Ben ain't home. And he makes that kind of choice. Again, the journey continues, but everything to me after in general is a challenge to the choice he makes in this fight.
Yeah. No, I really like that. I tend to believe Rey senses, resolve in him. Rey senses the truth that he is, not happy with Snoke, right?
Yeah.
I think that is this great story where Snoke, Palpatine, the general dark side, told him like, hey, everybody's holding you back, just like Sheev told Anakin. Like all these do-gooders who are lying about how great they really are holding you back. And he's like, great, yeah, got to kill the past. Hey, wait, Snoke, you're also telling me who I should be and holding me back. So, I believe what you're telling me. Kill the past. That includes you, old man, I think that's definitely where he's at. And I think there's resolve to that perspective of like, all of them, in any elder figure, anyone who's ever told me what to do, anyone who's ever told me to take my mask off. So I think he is absolutely resolved in killing Snoke. Right. And I think that there's that moment from him too. It's certainly Rey's face of like, are we doing this? Did you just let me catch the blade instead of fighting, instead of screaming that it's yours?
Right.
You let me take it. And now we're going to face this together, but I think he's got that too. Is she going to take it? Is she going to, have my back? So I think he's going into it with this with the resolve of, Snoke's got to go. Everybody who's ever told me what to do or what to be has got to go. But also this hope for her, right? And I think in the actual fight with the guards, there is just the absolute obvious surface level of like, yeah, they're going to kill him. It's kill or be killed. That's the nature of this fight. But I think with the guards themselves and his sort of attitude toward them, right? They are yet another old traditional thing holding him back, keeping him in line. You know, I go back to that scene of the way they popped into the ready stance when he yelled at Snoke, right? He can't even have a conversation with this guy alone anymore without these, you know, pillars of tradition keeping him in line. So I think he's got plenty of just anger and attitude toward the guards and everything they symbolize.
Yeah.
And I think that for him, what's on the other side is everything that the Darksiders normally want of kill the master, become the master, supreme power, take more and more power, and no one can stop me. That's been the dark side tradition, but I think he's also like saying, burn that down, because I'm going to have all the dark side without that pesky loneliness.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn this whole dark side thing upside down of like, yep, grab for power, kill anybody who stops you, kill anybody who questions you. But also I just really deeply don't want to be alone. And I sense this connection with this woman. So I think he's got resolve about, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm claiming the crown, but I'm also switching it up a little bit and trying to take her with me.
Build something new. I love this stuff after the fight, but I think we count it in this whole sequence, in this whole duel of just staring at the, you know, bisected body of Snoke, and just kind of lost in thoughts. And I wonder how much is him going, ooh, okay, I did do that. Is that did I make another good decision? I'm not sure. It's that gnawing. And then that's why he kind of turns around. It's like, no, burn it all down. Burn it all down, because that's the only thing that's going to make it all seem right to him. I think you're right. I really like that. And then, yeah, the connection with her, it has some echoes of that Revenge of the Sith, Padme, Anakin stuff, right? Of like, hey, our empire, I did this for us. I don't want to do this alone. And then you know, get stuck in that shell of Vader for decades alone. So I think you're right. There's definitely, it's a real connection. We always say that the intimacy between them, the hand touch on Ahch-To, the Force vision is, I don't mean to be, you know, crass or jokey, but it's the closest like Star Wars sex scene that I think we've had in terms of just pure intimacy. I mean,
Rian Johnson has literally said that, and that was his intention.
What hasn't he said?
He said a lot, but no, that is to just say that I agree with you, and I think that's the intent, and I think it reads.
Yeah, and this fight is to me a continuation of that. And again, going to this theme of, you get to the end of it, I love that she's like, "All right, great, now we can save the fleet. We're gonna win the day." And he's like, "Great, now we can just burn it all down, and it's you and me. Let's do this." And you know, and then play the Kirby Enthusiasm Yoinks music there. So
yeah. So for Rey, what other thoughts do you have on her personal motivation, her victory conditions for this fight?
I was looking, I'm trying to find the right way to phrase it. I think Rey is fighting for her own belief in hope, or what she's come to. She's gone there to save Ben, right? It is the big thing. She's been told that it won't work. So I kind of see this as striking out on her own, and a victory is that path being right, because, you know, remember her she's trying to remember her place in the story. She's trying to find her place in the story. The darkness is calling her. She has the cave. She needs to know her parents, and even Luke is still being grumpy about it all. These are all these concepts whittling away at her resolve and her self-discovery. And she has a place in the story, no matter who she is. She's starting to see that. She's starting to get that. But right now it's focused on the, you know, kind of this theoretically and literally giving the hero's blade to Ben. She's been trying to do that, right, for a while. And in this fight, the actual fighting ends with her going, take the blade. And so I think in a way she might lose this fight in what she wants going in, which is Ben and knowing that I've made the right choice, but gains this bigger victory. I think she comes out of it, particularly when she reaches for that blade to pull it back from Ben. It's just knowing her place and understanding that she just might be the one that needs to do this. And she, you know, leaves Ben. She doesn't put him in the escape pod and try to heal him and put a Band-Aid on and take him back to mom or anything. She's like, he's gone, he's done. And I've got to go move rocks. She's going to learn that lesson. And I think that's kind of the transition for me. So she goes into it going, I've left Luke. I'm going to do this. I believe he can be saved. I have belief in this hope. And then comes out of it going, well, the hope might be in me. And it's not about, you know, I'll be doing this alone. Obviously, this is a connection to the bigger cause. But I think she comes out stronger for that in the end.
Yeah, no, I really agree with a ton of that. I think in the actual just straightforward fight with the Praetorian Guards, I really think that it's, again, obviously survival, but there's so much defiance in it. There's so much anger, right? This isn't like Obi-Wan, at his most centered in a fight where like, well, a bunch of people hate me again and trying to kill me, but I'm totally centered and I'll defend myself and live, right? This is
Yeah.
feral fury, right? I just see in the way she's fighting the guards, that's the scavenger who had to fight to live on Jakku, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
That's the young woman who felt so alone and had to scratch lines into the wall to keep her hope alive, right? I feel like she's fighting for her life against those Praetorian guards, but she is also punching Tito. She is taking a swing at Unkar Plot. She is, kicking to the groin of anyone who has ever come and tried to take something from her when she's just trying to get by and stay hopeful. Like, I think there's that earned, lived experience anger in her fight that she is projecting onto the Praetorian guards.
I love that. A little righteous anger. Maybe even a little bit of Luke's beard in there. Just, I went to you for help, and this is where we're at. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's in the scream. It's in the like that feeling when she gets kicked down by the one and just pops right back up.
Yeah.
There's just something in that of like, that's a person who's just been trying to get by, just trying to survive, has a good heart, who's been kicked down by the cruelty of other people again and again, and she's had it,
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a lot of that in there, which leads to lots of stuff in Rise of Skywalker, which I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there is still this element of like hope, right? When she wins, if they survive this together, they're together now. Ben has turned against Snoke. She'll save the Resistance fleet. That's, the first thing on our mind. We can save them from that bombardment right away. And I think, what she said to Luke was right. She sensed there was goodness in him. She's been trying to give that blade away. Ben can be the hero the galaxy needs. If the First Order doesn't just give up, they can defeat the First Order together. But really, with Ben, with the Skywalker blade, with Ben in charge, and I think the big part of that for Rey's journey, and you were touching on this as well, is, and then she can be off the hook, right? Mm-hmm. She has had a direct a desire to walk away from that blade in Force Awakens. Then it coming to her hand, the Force Awakens, and we talked about in that duel about it being sort of like the beginning of her journey, but she has to kind of do the bigger version of that. She accepts it and she uses it. Yeah. And then she spends this entire movie trying to give it to Luke a second time, being honest with Luke of like, there's something inside me and I don't understand it and I'm afraid of it. And, oh, Luke, you're afraid of it too. And now Ben is saying, yep, Luke is afraid of it. And I think she is afraid to take that responsibility and fully deal with what does it mean to be the hero of the galaxy? What does it mean for me to fully use this power? And I think that, she has this moment where, hey, when we get through this fight, I can hand this off to Ben and he can take care of it. Yeah. And that's what's so great about their confrontation of the kind of full final realization of like, he's not worthy of that blade and what it symbolizes. I have to take it. Okay. Yeah. I see that it is now my responsibility to take. And I think that tracks through to the end of The Last Jedi when she's looking at the broken blade and it kind of even being a symbol of herself of like, how do we make this all work? And it tracks through to where she's at the beginning of Rise of Skywalker. She's training hard. She intends to be the hero, but she's still kind of concerned about what that means and how to do it and afraid of her own power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think, then you added in the wonderful wrinkle of Leia's blade later on. And I know we're going to talk about this. I'll just mention, but from Ben throwing the lightsaber to her going, uh-oh, he doesn't deserve it, to the Rise of Skywalker, him nodding and her passing the blade to him. You've talked so wonderfully before about the blade they fought over is now something that connects them there in Rise of Skywalker. We'll talk more, I'm sure, but I think about the end of this whole sequence, which is we're going to talk about in terms of thrills too. But think of that, and then again on Exegol and Rise of Skywalker, and I really like what you're saying there of her finding that purpose in it.
Yeah. I think the more we talk about this fight, I think what's really fascinating about it is there's a lot of stuff going on with Rey and Kylo as characters, but on a real sort of like, what are victory conditions with the Praetorian Guards? It's we'll survive, and then once they do, then the real duel happens between them as characters, right?
Yeah.
And in some ways, the real big finale of the duel is fighting over that blade, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other big thoughts on victory conditions, or should we move on?
No. We didn't get to Snoke's. Sorry, buddy, you lost.
I think his motivation was, hey, rule the galaxy, destroy Luke, don't be cut in half, and he failed.
And he lost.
More than a half, because there was a hand there.
That's true.
Anyway, let's talk about the environment. How does the environment help the story or the thrill factor of this fight?
Man, Ryan and company having this basic idea of just, hey, remember that throne room scene? Let's do it bigger. And what if the royal guards join the fight? I just absolutely love that starting point, and it is good into the Devil's Lair vibes. I love what you're talking about of the sanctum of Snoke, which we've already seen in other fights in other ways, but it would absolutely would track that Snoke would have this on a ship called the Supremacy and 8 guards, and they're ready to fight. And we didn't know the exact Palpatine connection at the time, of course, but it makes a lot of sense that something like this would exist, whether Snoke has full control of his mind or the spirit of Palpatine is pulling any length of string on him, that it is kind of in this, build it bigger and better and stronger. And it's this evil there that kind of has repeating themes, but just in terms of the thrill factor, man, it's Star Wars, man. It's Star Wars. It is figures on the floor. And this is a beautiful sequence for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that it is the throne room. It is a throne room, but it is a very, very different aesthetic. I am partial to it because it felt to me like the infamous Red Room from Twin Peaks. And then, the designers, some of the designers said, yeah, that was one of the inspirations. I think just kind of being encircled in deep red, right? It kind of looks elegant, but it speaks of anger, violence, conflict. Red in the culture you and I grew up in is generally coded as alarm, violence, blood, right?
Yeah.
So to be utterly surrounded by that, it's already kind of a violent, disturbing space. And then I think it is the thrill factor and, helping the environment, helping to tell the story that, Star Wars has a lot of imagery that's like, what does violence look like? What does it feel like? What's the consequence of it? And I love that in this one, the consequence of violence is that, the dead bodies and armor gets chucked around the space, and the place starts to like fall apart as a literal consequence of, flung bodies and burning armor, so that the space is falling apart as a consequence of violence, That is
a wonderful thematic look at it. I also will add, it's this beautiful giant, why not burn it all down with the curtain? But no, I think you're right. It's a lot of things as these things always are. But I just think in terms of the adding to that thrill and that story, it's like, cool, Devil's Lair, it's going to start burning. Let's do it. Why not?
Yeah, it is a great just space fantasy thrill of like, well, hey, whatever that semicircle hole in the floor that the one Praetorian guard gets thrown into, like, we don't know how these ships work. We don't know how throne rooms work. Apparently, there's just a really nasty space blade in there.
Yeah,
of course.
Well, Snoke, he gets hot easy. He's got that robe on for looks, and so it's a big AC cooling system. Makes sense.
Now I'm picturing him standing over it doing the full Marilyn Monroe with his golden robe. We'll need art of that one. Yeah, I think there's also something about like, obviously it's like, hey, this is a great way to make the fight feel even more intense, that everything's burning, everything's falling away, there's ash in the air, right? There's also this fun kind of interesting switch to me, as like it feels sort of coded as, the artifice is falling away, the bigger picture, the truth is being revealed, and as the fight's going on, like it's all falling away, and it feels like, hey, here's this other level of openness of exposure. So in a way, it feels to me like, well, this is what both Kylo and Rey think they're going to get to at the end of this fight, this deeper level of exposure and truth, and they do. It's just not the truth that either of them wanted. So it becomes, instead of like a healthy, nice open exposure, a like, hey, let's expose ourselves to even more raw hurt and pain.
Yeah. Let's unwrap this trauma here. Let's do this, kids.
Yeah. Down comes the curtain and in comes more trauma. Any other thoughts on the environment?
No, again, it's just simply put, one of my favorites. I just love it. I just love it so much.
Yeah, really, really satisfying. What sort of realities of filmmaking do you think about when you watch this big Praetorian Guard fight and the resolution with Rey and Kylo?
You know where I go? I go to the fight coordination. Again, whether people love it or not, I remember back in the day, I had one old friend of mine DM me just breaking apart every move. All right, that's fine. Regardless, I just watch it and I just go to some of the behind the scenes clips and just them training, Adam Driver taking control of every movement of Kylo, as we love to talk about. Daisy Ridley just so good, plus the stunt performance and everyone involved. It was just big and it was bold. It was this modern Star Wars fight with, I think, a giant nod to the prequels. I think a lot of the Phantom Menace fight and the conversations you and I have had around the coordination of that and the choreographed dance kind of vibe of that, and how a lot of people love that. And I think I've come to appreciate that over the years more. And here it is on front, big display. It was a big fight, and I love the footage of them practicing and getting the moves down and all the stuff. And I think about that a lot of just this is what they wanted to put into this fight.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's my my Phantom Menace love. I've talked about a lot about. I just love how many shots there are that just like that's the actors. They trained well, and here is a full shot where you can see all the moves. And yeah, I know there are a bunch of cuts and moves that people don't like. We'll talk about that a little bit, but for me, I really like seeing some action like this that is long, continuous camera shots, some distance. So you're really watching the actors and the stunt people fully do the fights. You can track the logic of the moves, all that kind of thing. And for me, that really works in this scene. I also just feel very, very connected to Rey and Kylo. I think there's so much of their emotion in their faces that elevate the tension of how wounded are they gonna be? What's gonna happen next? You can really see Kylo in particular making choices, about how to handle these next two, how to play them off against each other. All the acting moments really sing for me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, all through it.
Yeah. Another thing that really strikes me about the filmmaking of this is the great design of the armor. Just like from the way it breaks, the way it sounds, you sense that it's not as vulnerable to lightsaber blows, right? I mean, and obviously you see them take some swipes that don't fully take out the guards, but just, the visual dictionary comes out and you can read about what it's made of and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But just like it was clearly not just like stormtrooper armor. There's something else going on there. Like you can feel like, this lightsaber is not slicing through, like it's hot butter.
Yeah.
This is a tough steak, not hot butter.
Yeah, no, I love the design, all the influences into design, and like I said, even some of the there's some awkward helmets. If I was joining up, there's some choices I would not. Please, I'd like to go this. I'd like to wear that, not this. But I love that about it. There, it is very sci-fi, and I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to acknowledge the great Praetorian Guard dropping the blade debate. If for some reason people aren't caught up on this. When Rey is facing off with that final guard in one shot, he has two blades in his hand. And then once he has Rey pinned, he has the one to her neck. And then she does her cool drop move and takes him out. And, people kind of freeze frame that and say, where did the other blade go? This is terrible. What do you feel about all that, Ken?
Here's where I go with it. I wish it wasn't there. I wish that wasn't a point of entry for some of the bad faith discussion around the film, but it happens. I do liken this to season 8 of Game of Thrones and that coffee cup debacle. There's a lot of reasons to maybe not like that season or that show or where it went. A lot of good intellectual conversations to have around it. I'm totally there for that. The coffee cup's not the reason. Coffee cup is not the reason. See, Benioff and Weiss didn't care. And that legitimately came up from folks. A production mistake, a production mistake, which happens so many times. Look at Watch Guy and Mandalorian, right? And the great figure art Brian Ward made about it to commemorate it. I wish it didn't happen, I wish it didn't happen, but it does. That kind of stuff happens. And the fact that got blown up as a big gotcha, and I see clearly still a little thorn in my side, as is the coffee cup. It is what it is. It's a sequence that I think is great overall in that moment. And there's other sequences I even like better than that one anyways. But that's my thoughts on it. It's unfortunate. I wish it wasn't there. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I think for me it's like, yeah, hey, if it could it have been shot better to see him on purpose drop that other blade to put his full weight into the other one? Could we have it been knocked out of his hand? Sure, that would have been even better and perfect, and it doesn't open the door for this discussion.
Yeah.
Then for me, it brings up this really how do we want to watch film in this day and age, right? I know some people are eagle eye and probably spotted it on the first viewing. Without the benefit of the internet, I might never have noticed that.
Same.
Because films are edited to be magic. They're edited to be look where we want you to look, pay attention to what we want you to pay attention to. And to me, it gets to a question of, hey, it's legitimate critique. It's a little bit of choreography that is ambiguous. You kind of have to assume he dropped it and we didn't see. Valid criticism once you notice it. But how do we want to watch film? Do we want to be like willing participants and saying it's a magic trick? Please let me stay involved in the magic. Or do we want to freeze frame it and watch it in a way that it was not designed to be watched?
Hey, where'd that bird go? Where'd you put that bird? You made that bird disappear. Where'd bird go?
I mean, in some ways, it's the same as the Luke getting nowhere near that stunt performer with the kick on in Return of the Jedi, right? And I think for the most part, that's posted lovingly by people who watch Return of the Jedi, and they have a little bit like it is what it is. They weren't as serious about the stunt fighting. Who cares, right? Maybe, but I've never seen that GIF posted with. And this is why Luke is a Gary Stu, and this is why Return of the Jedi has always been an awful movie. This is why Richard Marquand hates Star Wars. So there is that, to me, that contrast of, hey, if you love fight scenes, it's a bit of choreography that is weird once you notice it. Totally legitimate criticism. But then it is also hard to ignore the people who are maybe using it as a wedge issue.
Yeah, it's just bad faith stuff. Yeah, I would love more conversations around that Luke kick. I'm sure they showed George, and George was like, "I don't care. Did the guy fall? Points made. Move on."
Yeah, well, it goes back to like you want to be thrilled that Luke Skywalker's a Jedi Knight and Han's gaping in shock at his abilities as he saves everyone. That's where we should be if we're watching the story, if we're emotionally involved in the story,
Yeah. I the Luke Force kick is I love, which I can get behind that headcanon. Oh, it's the Force. I honestly, I don't know if I saw that till the late 90s.
Yeah.
I really don't think. I think it was one of those, then it became like, oh yeah, God, that's wonderfully silly. Yeah. Again, at 7, 8, 9, I'm not watching this to go, ding, there's a sin. I'm just not. And I don't have a problem with some of that overall. Like I get it. Like again, this is a little bit of a mess up in terms of how it was shot and put together. I totally get that, but yeah, I will rest my case.
Yeah, I am also not convinced of the physics realism that the way Anakin cuts Dooku's hands off, which is one of the coolest things ever, would cause his hand and blade or cause his blade to fly up into the air.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, one last thing I wanted to talk about the realities of the filmmaking is I do think it's a really fascinating choice to have them not use the Force. Kylo in particular, who is very used to using that as a tool, as we see him do in The Force Awakens. And it's something that like totally good faith viewers who are not as Star Wars obsessed as me have said like, hey, what's the deal? Why doesn't Kylo just give him a Force push? Or why doesn't he just twist his wrist and break their bleeping necks? And to me, I just always take it as when you're using the Force in a fight, you can really only use it when you have an opening that's safe. And Kylo is not finding that opening because all of these weapons are coming at him.
Yeah. And I think there's something to say about your mind being clear and where you're at, right? And there's a lot going on in his soul, too. So,
yeah. But how do you feel about that? Has that ever bothered you? Has that ever been a distraction?
Surprising, not surprising to probably a lot of folks. No, not at all. I think there's so much going on, and I think there is a moment I can talk about where I think he has a calm breath force kind of connection beat in the fight too. But overall, yeah, I love you. Look, you can make the video game analogy. Even when I'm in those situations, I'm hacking buttons. I don't have time to think about F1 and triangle gets me my four. Like you're fighting, you're scrapping. This is a scrap. It's a back alley scrap.
You heard it here first. Kylo's scrapping.
He's scrapping.
Let's get into favorite moments of thrill and emotion. What are some of the things on your list?
I go to the very beginning for the fight, man. Rey looking at Kylo. They have this great elevator conversation, which again, I suggest y'all, if you're watching the sequence, go to the elevator where he's staring off and she's like, Ben, and he kind of like, oh, yep, that's my name. I love that moment. But Rey looking at Kylo while the door opens up behind her, revealing her crucible, right? Revealing the challenge in front of her. And her just kind of turn around to it. It's a small beat. You cut away. You go to some of the other stuff, the Finn, the Rose, and Poe of it all. I just love that as a starting point. It really sets you up for it. It really is a little thrill of what's to come.
Yeah. Oh no, that is absolutely great. Yeah, I think once Rey catches that blade, and it is so heroic, such an applause moment. It's fun to go from like hero applause moment to her standing up, going, "Really? Are we doing this? Are we fighting together?" And there's that moment of just like, I'm looking into your eyes, I'm looking into your soul. You want me to have this blade. You want to stand together against this. All right, let's go. You know, that is so great. And then for me, just like right in that beginning, because we have that one scene and then we cut back to the rest of the fight. I love Kylo's weird ground stab to block.
Yeah.
I love Rey's kind of tricksy, like, I'll just pop over to your side of the fight and poke a guy to death. And, you know, as has been pointed out and loved on the internet among fans of Rey and Kylo, the fall back and the brief thigh squeeze from Rey to Kylo is, you know, that's definitely, once you know it's there, it adds a lot to the fight.
It must have been love, but it's over now. Love all that there. And I want to add, even who's setting it up there, you got this big villain, Snoke. I love all his lines that he spits out. Andy Serkis does some great work. Still the fiery spit of hope. You have the spirit of a true Jedi. I love all that stuff too, just kind of setting kind of the overall tension and stakes. And this moment, because a lot of it's going on, it's like, again, we're in this showdown, right? And you're kind of like, even as an audience, all right, we're having a showdown now. And I like that the villain is kind of like, oh, the light side is so neat. Whatever, it can't win. It can't win. And it's a great setup to some of the stuff, the action we're talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is, so great. Still that fiery spit of hope.
Yeah.
So what are some other moments for you as we get into the heart of the fight?
Yeah, into the heart of the fight, indeed. Definitely mention again the Rey and Kylo go back to back. Put all your music cues on it. It's you know, we don't get a ton of slow motion in Star Wars, right? I think this might be one of the first big examples of it. Someone could check me on that, I'm sure, but I just love the use of it. It's still. I mean, we put on this movie in our house, and that is one of Grace's favorite moments. It's one of mine, and it's just we still applause. Break it in our own living room. The Chihuahuas don't know what we're doing. Love that. But I wanted the Praetorian guard pulling his light whip, yank, 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 and the moments before his severed head sets the place on fire. I just love that. Ooh, you think you're bad? You're about to light the place up with your head.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, no, maybe Rey and Kylo, maybe that's part of their force power as a dyad. Maybe that's not filmmaking or storytelling. Maybe they are literally using the Force to slow things down because it happens between them and The Force Awakens.
Yeah, you're right. That's kind of the first little one for sure. This is a big display of it. Yeah, but I love that. We talked about The Force Awakens one. Good call.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of had to try to hold myself back on the main body of the fight because just like almost all of the actual fighting beats are cool. The one of them that just really jumps to my mind is more of an acting moment, and it's Rey's scream of fury, right? Like, it's that just like, you know, the light whip guy just came at her.
Yeah,
things are burning, and you know, now the one she briefly knocked down has got, you know, taking the knives apart and doing that sort of the psychological battle of doing the, like, the whipping him around, the spinning him, going like, you're not going to get away from me.
Mm.
And just the like, she twirls, and just the scream of fury. It's so great. It so brings you into her headspace and makes the fight more thrilling.
Yeah, love that. Oh, amping up all the energy and stakes.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great Kylo moments. You're right. I think there's that one moment where he kind of does take a deep breath and assesses how they're going to come at him, and and tries to stay on top of it. But I think my favorite just kind of like action moment is how much work Kylo has to put into taking out that second to last guard for him, where he's got the stolen staff from one of the fallen Praetorians, and he whacks them in the back with a stolen weapon, drives a lightsaber down, gets blocked by the arms, pushes it down to the neck, then has to bend his crossguard blade into the neck, and leads into that final phrase where he just barely took that guy out and the other one swoops at him. But just that whole, like, it's dark side, it's Kylo, it's fury, but it's showing like, yeah, these guys are hard to chew through.
Yeah.
I had to, in multiple seconds, I had to hit you like 4 times, 4 different ways before you just went down.
A lot of gristle in this steak. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I love that moment. Yeah, you mentioned. I really do love the gathering himself, because he's whether or not he's connected to the Force or not, I don't know. It's just a moment where almost a moment of balance or peace in this, where he's just feeling everything around him, because he starts fighting with his back to them, right? And he's just part of his skills, part of what he's capable of. But I do think that leads well in what you're talking about. Is this is a hard fight, and he is getting beaten down.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we talked about the Praetorian Guard's missing blade. Put that aside. Rey's final victory of like, I'm just going to kind of change the situation. I'm going to drop my blade in a way you didn't expect. The backhanded, the double cut, got applause in the theater just about every time I saw Last Jedi. And I think it's cool and great, and I love it. And of course, what a button, right? The throwing the blade to Ben, obviously having emotional meaning, her screaming Ben, her willingly giving him the blade. And then that is just hey, Star Wars is cool and fun sometimes, right? And the ignite, turn off, and the smoking eye as the like final little exclamation point on the fight is just damn cool, I think.
Absolutely. Again, there's some great themes behind it. Her tossing the blade, giving the blade away, but needing to for the fight, yelling Ben. Oh, it's delicious. It's delicious and brimming with themes. But man, now see, remember, you got the Holdo maneuver coming shortly after this, right? Just this wonderful feat in sound design and the visual and everything, and it left everyone speechless in the viewings I had early on. This, if not for the Holdo movement, this might be that moment that people talk about even more. It is such the silence that follows the ignition of that blade and the sound of that. It's just great design. It's just put together so nicely, and the beat, everything kind of leading up to that point. So it deserves its that it got in all the theater experiences I had.
Absolutely. Any other moments of thrill or emotion you wanted to talk about?
Just motion at the end. I know we're talking mostly about the fight, but I really do love. I think some of Daisy's best work is in this sequence, and just this. The don't do this, Ben. Please don't go this way. All the things you and I were talking about. They get the end of this fight. She's like running to we can save the fleet, and turns around, and he's having this crisis of conscience, but really this confirmation of the choice he's made and convincing himself of this. I just really love that Ben don't do this, Ben. I just think it's great. And that's a little bit of the crack in that wall for Kylo to get into her head, right? Exact moment that she feels like her decision to go here was in fact wrong in that moment, because he's able to go like, you have no place. Let me just toss all these things into your soul, because I see a window right now. And that's what I do. And I want you to go with me. And here's my hand. It factors in some of the big stuff coming, but I just love that in terms of emotion and a come down from the big thrill of the fight.
Yeah, no, the please don't go this way. To me, it has some great rhythm with Padme's. You're going down a path I can't follow. And that sort of true heartbreak, true wanting someone you care about to make a better choice, and being just kind of shocked that they can't. I think that all comes across. And yeah, I think for me, we've talked about it a lot, but I do really love that Kylo is both manipulating her and truly needs and wants her,
Yeah.
I think it is a manipulation. I think he is still, all torn up in the grip of the dark side of he thinks he saw this truth of this is a fear that will break her, that will realize that she needs me. I can give her validation that she's not going to get anywhere else,
Yeah.
And you can look at that. I think this conversation is always hard because I call it manipulation. And I think maybe sometimes people are be like, yeah, but he's not like twirling his mustache and, ha ha ha, I will get her, and I think it is just, it's flowing from him naturally because that's the dark side. The dark side manipulates. The dark side looks for fears. The dark side has a perspective that if you expose someone to their fear, they'll break,
Yeah.
I don't think he's, being a mastermind in this moment. And what I love about it is that much talked about broken little pleas, right?
Mm-hmm.
That lets you know, even if what he's saying is really unhealthy, really unfair, really manipulative, from his perspective, he deeply needs her companionship,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's what makes it interesting in Complex.
Mm-hmm. No, well said. And I think it's some of the finest acting in all of Star Wars from both of them combined in the scene, and Driver's so specific with what he wants to do, and love everything about it. And it all kind of, for me, leads to her just kind of going, you know what? Let me have that blade back.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about that. That's my final question on this fight. At the end of the battle, why do you think Rey says no to Kylo's plea to join him?
Look, it's really hard to set aside the explanation that comes in Rise of Skywalker. I think that's a big connection point between the movies. But the truth of the matter is, I think what she says in that and that film, and I would have taken her hand, but I wanted Ben's hand, not Kylo. That to me was always pretty apparent in this moment, right? I really kind of got that. And I always say, again, I said it earlier in the show, but like Ben ain't home. She's shouting that name and he's not there. And so she knows it's Kylo's hand. And I think I kind of wonder, if, especially with the reaching for the blade back, is this just like, and combined with the please don't go this way, seeing just this path that he's taken, the choice he's made, the dark side, and where she's at with her light versus dark and stuff. Some bigger debate fights are going to happen inside her soul a little bit later on when she learns a little bit more about her past. But I just I don't know. I love it, and I think she's got to be thinking. I look to Han, I look to Luke, I look to Ben, this blade is maybe belongs in my hands, and I don't mean that in a selfish sense, but just the call is for me to move forward. And maybe she feels alone. Maybe later on, that's kind of what she struggles with, is feeling alone and feeling the burden of this. But that's the next set of lessons. So I think that's all factoring into why she says no at this point. Which, because going in, it's probably, hey, if you tell her, hey, you're going to go this fight, some tough things going to happen, but at the end of it, he's going to put his hand out to you. You got that touch. You're going to be able to do that touch. She would have been like, yay. And then to see the truth of it. That's why she says no.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think everything you're saying about, the connection she has with Han and Luke, and Luke warned her about this. And I think it's powerful when she says earlier in The Last Jedi, like, Leia sent me here with hope, right? Like,
yeah.
I think there's that too of like, I can't. She's centered on what she's doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a connection to Ben, but it's been about bringing Ben, moving away from Kylo to Ben.
Yeah.
But I also just feel like it tracks really well with the Rise of Skywalker. It's not belabored in The Last Jedi. It's just, at the end of the day, this is her guiding dominant nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's tempted by being close to Ben. She wants that connection, but she's not tempted by the dark side. She is exposed to fear and pain, to kind of having her greatest fear confirmed. Your parents were nothing. Nobody wants you. You're not a part of this story, but I can give you that validation. She feels that fear and that pain, but she doesn't give into it the way we've seen other people fall to the dark side. I think it's just kind of one of those like, I feel the pain. I feel the desire to be close to you, but of course I'm not going to let my friends die. Of course I'm not going to let innocent people die. I don't even really want to take that blade, but I have to, because this is right. I think when Luke is saying, because Leia saw, your spirit, your heart, she has all of these legitimate reasons to have lived anger that I talked about earlier in this fight. But at the end of the day, this is what she chooses. Yeah. Because it's who she is.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. I love that. Her nature, right? Her nature. None of it seems right. I love that.
Yeah. So, okay, wrapping up. Out of 10 lightsabers fully ignited, how many lightsabers do you personally give this fight that is not two lightsabers hitting each other.
I'm going big, man. I'm going 9 out of 10 burning curtains. I'm going big only because just look how we've talked about this fight here for over an hour with good reason. There's just so much there, from the cool to the deep to the profound to the important. It's just with great purpose, and I love it. So 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm giving it 8 out of 10. I love just how visceral, how physical it is. I do like that it is a very different kind of fight, but it is explosive. It's big. I love that a lot of the fights that we've talked about, like we talked last time about the Force Awakens duel in some ways being like the most narrative. And this one has this weird tension of the narrative is going on, in the middle of the fight, but it's almost like, can we just cut through these guys so we can get to the heart of our conversation? And it makes it really different and interesting. So I'm giving it 8 out of 10.
Love it. High grade.
All right. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be back to talk about the duel between Kylo in the projection of Jedi Master Luke Skywalker. Back in a moment. And we are back to continue talking the magic of the lightsaber showdowns in The Last Jedi. We are going on to the big duel at the end. Kylo thinks he's fighting his uncle and former master, Luke Skywalker, in the flesh. But in reality, it is a masterful Force projection. Kylo stomps off his command ship at about 2 hours and 12 minutes. The scene is then intercut with the Resistance escape from the caves of Crate. And at about 2 hours and 18 minutes, Kylo realizes he has been fooled. So, Ken, what are your current feelings on this fight, and have they changed over the years?
No, they haven't changed over the years. Again, these two fights, I love them so much. So, absolutely love it. I love rewatching it. It's just got some of those beautiful shots in Star Wars. It's got some of my favorite of the new music, which would make it some of my favorite music in Star Wars overall as well. And that includes like the trailer version that kind of wasn't in the movie of the Spark. So yeah, and so caught up in the moment upon first viewing that I ignored so many clues that something was up. Right, like I acknowledge them, like all of us. Oh, Luke cut his hair and dyed his beard on the flight over. Okay, I just got caught up in all of that, and all of the themes and all the weight and all the moment that reveal, Kylo's blade going into Luke, and I'm talking about the second one where the first one kind of swings, but the slow stabby stab. And then we're like, what? And that Fade Docto was one of my personal favorite experiences as a Star Wars fan. The first time, just loved it. So I've always loved this fight. I've played some what ifs and could haves in my mind, and could Luke have been there, and could Luke have survived, and but he didn't. And his choice, this choice, I really do think continues to work for me, and it's a choice I believe in. Kenobi died so Luke and Leia and the Rebecca could go on. Luke dies so the galaxy can go on. But that is a different podcast we have touched upon before, and we'll touch upon again. As for the fight, I just think there's maybe there's some of the critiques comes from a desire for something bigger. It's the big final fight in a lot of ways in this movie. But the fight is truly, to me, more about Kylo versus his hubris, or Kylo and Ben in a way. But Kylo too is so caught up in the moment, his rage and his choice that, like me, he couldn't pick out the clues. So it's just an overall great experience for this fight. Loved it then, loved it now. Love it now.
Yeah, I didn't pick out like the specific clue about, we see the one shot of Kylo's foot moving and the red being exposed under the salt, and then Luke's foot moves and that doesn't happen. I think I just thought Luke's very good at stepping gently.
Yeah.
But I did notice the blade and was like, what is up with that? Did the blade bump for you at all in first viewing of like, how does Luke have that blade?
No, other than I just assumed there was either reasons, or again on the flight over, did he somehow, but when I say I didn't acknowledge it, like it all popped in my head in the first viewing, but was just kind of like, I had my mouth open, just watching the fight. And by the second viewing, all the conversations, he doesn't step on the sand or the salt, and some of the reasons behind it, and even why he'd project that blade versus the green, and why that would matter with Kylo, all that stuff hits me later on. But the first viewing, no, I paused enough to just wonder, but I didn't think any deeper. I was just so caught in the moment.
Yeah. No, it was great because I was like, what is going on? Why does he have that blade? There's
Mm.
got to be a reason, you know.
Yeah.
I think partly because I was just viscerally emotionally affected by seeing the Skywalker blade severed in two, and being like, did he put it back together?
Right.
Yeah, no, I've always loved it. It was the number one thing that I loved about Last Jedi on first viewing. The number one thing I think I wanted to talk about when we did our big Last Jedi review is Luke's triumph of pacifism, and realizing that I got exactly what I had hoped for and talked about is I wanted Luke to be truly deeply powerful, and he was, but just in this other and better way. It wasn't about violence, so I think for me though, I think at times I would have taken one or two more passes. I would have taken one or two more swipes. So the actual physical part of the duel felt a little bit bigger. I love everything about it that's going on idea wise. I love all the physicality. But every once in a while I can see the perspective of like, could the actual sword swipes back and forth? I don't want Luke swiping. I love that he doesn't take a swipe.
Yeah.
And then I get that once you get into like, Luke, this is a fight where Luke wants to pretend he's going to be using that blade, but he just wants to dodge. Right. I get that. Like, okay, well, 18 passes of that is going to get real boring real quick. But I also get that feeling of it is so huge and beautiful and important emotionally and thematically. I can see the perspective of wanting it to physically get to a higher stake.
Yeah, and that's why. Yeah, exactly with you on that one. I can understand the desire for something bigger because it is this kind of resolution of a way of this particular film and this particular journey, Kyle. But more to come. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I wonder if there's like a debate on like how many swipes do we need to put in there?
Yeah, but I mean, for the story that it is telling, it is perfect. And I think this is one of those moments where, is this just like, hey, at the end of a Star Wars film, I kind of prefer a bigger physical duel? That's a fine opinion to have. I think when I look at this as what it is and, engage with the story that I'm being presented with, I don't need them to run back and forth past each other 8 more times.
Yeah.
I love that it's minimal because that's kind of the point. The duel isn't the duel. The physical duel isn't the duel. Fighting in aggression isn't the answer. This is a duel about Luke, fully knowing the lesson of Bespin. In some ways, this lightsaber fight is the anti-lightsaber fight. I'm going to trick everybody thinks the fight's the big thing, including, my broken, naive nephew. I'm going to let him think he's having the big fight that everybody thinks that's what a Jedi is going to be about. I'm going to use that, to show people that's not what it's about, and that's not to me Luke talking to the audience. That's Luke talking to the audience of Kylo,
Total. Oh yeah. Again, Kylo, you're right. Kylo thinks does think this is his third act.
Yeah, and then I think I've also just really come to appreciate that it, like I said at the top of our podcast here, I really appreciate that it is kind of a duel in the very classic filmmaking sense. All those great profile shots. That the majority of the battle is assessing the opponent, the running passes. It is done with so much purpose and with so much style, and it's so beautiful that at the end of the day, I just really want to engage with what it is, because what is there is beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. With you.
Yeah, almost like the Obi-Wan and Maul fight, right? Like it's totally minimal on purpose.
Yeah, totally. The setup, the music, everything, the shots. Oof.
Yeah, so let's get into the heart of the characters in this duel. What is at stake? Why are they fighting? What is victory for Luke and Kylo?
Yeah,
let's start with. Do you want to start with Kylo or Luke?
Let's do Kylo.
All right. Kylo.
Yeah. The Luke stuff's they're both really interesting, but Luke I think there's some more layers I love. Keeping it off what we were talking about the last time, I think again Kylo's just made this big choice. So there's a lot of this. I got to confirm that choice. I'm throwing my staff members around. Hux is, I got him under my thumb, even with his dirty looks. So I think that it almost becomes this literal fighting to kill the past, as he proclaims, and he's just so narrowly focused on it that it's stuffing out the resistance doesn't even get on his radar screen, right? Which leads to maybe some of his shame at the end, and we'll talk about where that can go. So I just think it's just so. clear this is someone who just gave this speech about killing the past, and here's the past, literal the image of the past. And I've just made this big choice. I'm no longer Ben. I'm Kylo. I'm telling myself that. I'm telling myself that. I'm telling myself that. And blow that name. Just everything fire. Again, I've started to say, but he's mad at the Falcon too. The Falcon's there. The past. The past is buzzing around his head, and he's swatting it away with everything he can. So I think he goes down there to do what I keep saying: destroy the past, kill it if you have to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is a total. I'll finish what I started. I'm going to kill all of the past, and then I will become what I'm meant to be, and I'll feel great, right?
Yeah, right.
But he's in such a point of turmoil, right? Of like, from one perspective, like, hey, look, I had this great victory. I took out Snoke and I ascended. I'm in charge of the First Order, but that's not really. That's one part of what he wants, right? Yeah. But he wants to confirm his power. He wants to not be alone. The other perspective is Rey knocked him out. Rey rejected him and knocked him out and left him, right? So he didn't get what he wanted at all. And I think a lot of this duel for him is about like trying to face his fear, but he is so caught up in fear, right?
Yes.
It's, in some ways, I think his kind of original wound that Snoke and Palpatine pry open is this fear that he can't live up to these legends who are all of his parents and mentors. He specifically can't live up to the legend of Luke Skywalker, right?
Yeah.
And I think he's trying to prove that he can, right? I can fight and slaughter and stomp and rage enough to prove that I can overcome these shadows that I was afraid would reject me. So I got manipulated into rejecting them. Like killing Han, he thinks this kill will free him. But what I really love about it is that if he had been able to like slow down and think rationally or strategically, right? He might have come up with like, it's a rare ability, but he's projecting. I've been Ray and I've been having this conversation. Is he projecting?
Right.
But it's just that fear of like, I think that especially the shouting more, and then Luke manipulating him by doing the little shoulder brush of like, you didn't even come close to hurting me. I feel like his mind is racing with, there's still so much my master knows that I don't know. How did he do that? How did he do that? Oh no, what else does he know that I don't know?
Right.
That he's so caught up in that emotional fear that he can't slow down to go like, why does he have that blade? How else could he be doing this? What's the most logical way that he could be doing this?
Yeah. No. And some of the conversation around it was that like, well, why wouldn't he have seen that? Well, that's exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. That's the point. And it is so wrapped up in his head. And I wonder, I never really spent too much time ruminating on this one here, but you just brought something up great. I love that. I wonder how much is he just kind of like, and then she left me. I woke up and she didn't even take me. Like, and I'm not, by the way, not putting that on Ray. I think that was the right decision on Ray.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if he's just like, oh man, like she could have saved me that. Like, I just how much was he hurting? How much was he just hurting on every level?
Oh, I think he's hurting on every level possible right now. At least he didn't get his face cut again.
Yeah. And it's also, you and I love some of the Hux stuff in this scene here, where it's one of the only times, again, never on Hux's side, but just where he's just kind of like, you are bonkers, man. You've broken. And the Hux just has some of the upper hand here that he doesn't have in other spots.
Yeah, no, and I think it tracks. This is a moment that tracks really well through the sequel trilogy, going back to The Force Awakens, and Hux needling him, saying, "Don't make this personal," about your uncle and your former master, and then to this scene where Hux is saying, let's just stay focused. They're right there. we're so close to victory, and you got to make this personal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's talk about Luke. What do you think is at stake for Luke? Why is he fighting? What's victory for Luke?
He just wanted to ignite that lightsaber and kick ass. That's all. All he wanted to do. Look, you talked about it. You mentioned it in this episode, and you've talked about it in so many wonderful ways on the show. This triumph of this pacifism, right? This way to look at it. So I think for Luke, I just like, is he fighting for the Jedi way, like the true Jedi way? And it's this confirmation that the choice to be heroic, or at least make the choices that benefit the greater good, are right. But he needs to do it as a true Jedi, and not necessarily even as Luke, because I don't know, maybe Luke at some point would have run down that hill and fight in person. I don't know, but he's staying true to his big choices. He's upholding the tenets of the Jedi Order and providing the spark that was needed, not the one that was asked for, and helping to preserve the next generation for their fight. All those big kind of themes, they're trailer themes, right? There's been trailers. But you talk about him, there's something about staying true to this decision. And the decision isn't necessarily about, I'm going to stay on this island to die. He says that early in the film, and I know that's kind of what happens, but I don't think in that way, but just the right way. That's that's Rey shows up. Here's the blade. You're the hero. Be the hero. And he has to kind of break that down and find out what that really means, is what the movie's trying to talk to us about, at least with his stuff and a lot of the other things too. So I think that's what that's what's at stake. The correct way to do this, the Jedi way and the right way, and victory for him is both that and preserving the fight for the future, and preserving the next generation, which is that great speech and that I know you love.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's some great stuff in there. I think it really does track to, Luke has a specific relationship with violence and when to use it, and the violence in family members. His real great realization and triumph that there's no victory in cutting down his father on the Death Star, right? His great failure of thinking for even a fleeting moment that violence was the way to address, the horrors that Kylo was going to bring, and beating himself up about it alone on an island with fish nuns for years, right? And I think what's so great is I think all the choices he makes flows, of course, out of everything that happened in the movie, but specifically with this conversation with Yoda, right? Where Yoda is saying like, hey, you made a mistake. A bad one. It's not great.
Yeah.
You lost Ben Solo. We can't lose Rey. And I think to me, what's implied in that is like, she has this belief that the Jedi are here for a reason, that fighting for what is right, standing up against the darkness, defending innocent people. She has a belief that that's needed. You got to show her she's right. We can't lose her. Show her she's right. And Luke has that response of like, I can't be what she needs me to be. And I think what is implied by that, and what I love about that, is that Luke goes off and thinks about like, I can't do this the typical way that people would expect. I can't zip over there and fight in person. That's not me. That's not right for me.
Yeah.
But I can be the full spirit of the Jedi without compromising myself, Yeah. And that's what I so love about it, that it's mastery of the Force. It is Luke Skywalker being one of the most powerful Jedi ever. But it's also like, no, I'm aligned on the goals, but I need to find the way that is right for me to do it. Mm-hmm. And what he ends up doing is just, absolute classic Jedi, pure defense, right? Distract Kylo so the spark of the Resistance can survive, so he can save his sister, so he can save the future, Mm-hmm. Rey, Kylo, Poe, everyone. And then I think on top of it, there's this utter willingness to sacrifice himself for the future, the way Obi-Wan did, the way his father did. And I think there's also an awareness. I don't know if it's like, that's what I'll do, but I think an awareness that he is letting himself be seen as a mythic hero, Mm-hmm. I think specifically that he's kind of mocking the idea of the mythic Jedi hero earlier in the film, in saying, you expect me to just stand up against the whole First Order with a laser sword, and like, mm-hmm. kind of like, that's childish fantasy. Let's talk about the reality. The reality is the Jedi fail. The reality is I have great power, but I'm just a person who makes mistakes, Okay. And I think for me, it's about him coming to see through Rey's eyes that Jedi have real physical power that is very important. But being symbols is just as powerful sometimes. And, Jedi being symbols is just as important sometimes as the concrete actions they can take. Yeah. And that 1-2 punch that Luke allowing himself to be a symbol, an idea, allows Rey to literally physically use the Force to move close to actual concrete, to move the rocks. Yeah. It shows that 1-2 punch of like the idea, the symbolism is the power of the Jedi, something to look up to. and the real actual power and abilities. They both matter. And I feel like he's embracing that by being there at all.
Yeah, I think it ties a little to Laura Santeca and Poe Dameron. Just you need the Jedi for balance. It's not just about the laser swords. It's the presence. It's the purpose. It's the big picture around him. There, I think that's absolutely right and really effective in this film. And I love why Luke goes on that journey, like you said, mocking it at the beginning to being it in the end, because not only just the value, but the way you go about doing that's important.
Yeah.
I just want to add too. I think there's a little bit, and this is something I've thought about more and more as the whole series kind of plays out at 7, 8, 9, and the Han of it all, the Leia of it all related to Ben. I just think there's this idea of Luke is fighting for Ben a little bit, maybe a lot, but in a bit of just the idea that in person, this becomes a power chart game, but in person, Luke might have been able to kill Kylo. He might have had to, and I think that's got to factor a little bit into it as well. This way, Ben can live so others can save him. And I think there's a little bit of the conversation with Leia that only has gotten more important, and I've taken more out of that and had more understanding of that conversation with Leia as the story and time have gone on. I think that's factored a little bit into. We talk about the next generation here in this fight.
Absolutely, yeah. He's there to save the next generation, and he can't save Ben. And I always took that. Hit me emotionally that way. I always took him saying to Leia, like, he doesn't say he can't be saved. He says, I've come to confront him and I can't save him.
Right.
I think there's a real understanding of, like, I am one of the people who took a concrete action of igniting that blade for 1 second that he pushed against. I'm not the person that he's going to hear this from.
Yeah.
But I think there is this great act of hope of, Luke does confront him. He apologizes for his own failure, but then absolutely does not let Kylo off the hook for his own choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I think, talking about what are Luke's motivations, what are his goals, I think one of them is, I think the big picture is, the Jedi, in theory, are there to create balance by holding the dark side back.
Yeah.
He's literally physically doing that
Yeah.
in this battle. But then on the more personal level, it's just like why don't I just plant a seed and maybe it'll grow and maybe it won't. And, we talk a lot about the idea of that, mentorship can sometimes being like, here's a door.
Yeah.
Here's some ideas about why you should go through it. I'll leave it ajar.
Yeah.
I can't make you walk through it. That's your choice to walk through it. And I feel like there's a lot of that in Luke of just telling him things he needs to hear.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not here to try to talk you into anything. I'm just reminding you that you're not going to get what you want doing what you're doing. So you do with that what you want, kid. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, no, especially, we keep talking about Kylo thinks he's in this third act. And it's not that, again, these characters haven't watched Star Wars, but they've heard the tales. And the sequel trilogy is about, in many ways, the legends in the past hanging over everyone and how you react and interact and emerge from that. And so I think I love that stuff of like, oh, I get you come to save me. Is that what you think's happening? And just that simple. No, it's more that fear for Kylo. Like in the back of your head, you're like, did he just come here to kill me? more fear, more fear.
Yeah. I'm just not going to play the game. Yep. I'm just here to tell you that I'm sorry. And also you screwed up.
Yep.
Goes both ways, kid.
Yep. Absolutely.
So should we move on to the environment?
Let's.
Okay. How do you feel this intriguing, salty environment helps tell the story or the thrill factor of this duel?
It's salt and it's awesome. Hang every frame on a wall in a Star Wars museum, right? They shot the hell out of this stuff. Steve Yedlin just made things look beautiful. It's such a fantasy location, right? Like stark white landscape. I even think Ryan has said the past, it was like an early dream he had of or vision or note he made of just, I don't know, salt plant. Like, so you take that seed of an idea, you turn it into this stark white landscape of pure salt, a giant wall with burnt and burning spaceships, the sun setting on a faraway land. It's just otherworldly, but it's also so of Star Wars. And it just adds to the mythic angle of it here. You said up top that Last Jedi's put a lot of playing with the myth side of Star Wars more than anything. And I think it just kind of works for that. Every shot, every wide shot with the two of them in it and some great background. It seems like concept art sprung to life. I love it.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I love it. There's so many great things about the way it's shot and in the environment. I guess we'll talk a little bit about the filmmaking of the actual shots, but yeah, just this design of yep, it's salt and then red rock underneath, we know, but the pristine white world with the crimson blood red lurking underneath. I mean, it's very direct, but it's very visceral. Of like
Yeah.
you move a little bit, and you know what is pure and beautiful is suddenly, you know, pulsing with blood.
Yeah.
It is about like the risk of violence, right?
Mm.
Just sort of visually. I also think that there's so many shots of just these two small figures between these big forces. You know, it makes the environment and the way it's set up makes the fight very personal, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
Luke knows that, and Kylo gets tricked into it, but we, the audience, get to see like the. There's lots of fights where like the fate of the galaxy is you know happening in this duel, but this one it almost makes you like the fact that Kylo literally like hit pause on the rest of the galaxy, you know,
Yeah.
and it's just you imagining all of those commanders, you know, in the ATM sixes and all that, going like, okay, we just we bring space popcorn. What, we just watch this,
What do we do?
you know?
That's- I think of the stormtroopers in A New Hope, where like, is that our boss fighting that old dude? Let's go over there. I guess we just stand here. What do we do? What do we do?
Does he like it when you intervene? Should we take a pot shot? Yeah, like, I guess we better run over there. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely great. Of course, the you know the image that we talked about that Luke sort of mocked, and now coming to pass and being so powerful, of the lone hero standing against the wall of machinery. Yeah, it's just that tells the story, right? Of
Absolutely.
uh, be willing to stand up against the odds. But I think one of the things that I really love the most, and you really touched on it, is like it is this weird space fantasy landscape, but there's something about it that's somewhere between sadness and hope, which is totally appropriate for this part of the story and
Yeah.
what's happening. This is the spark winning to live to fight another day, you know. But you imagine things like Mustafar, they're just like, yeah, we're
Mm.
fighting on Anakin's erupting soul, you know.
Yeah.
Or we talked about with Force Awakens, where these young characters are lost and alone in the dark woods.
Mm.
And this is with like the tortured red earth where Luke had been standing, where that had been pummeled. It feels like this sort of festering wound. But the ash is kind of flowing through this setting sun, and it's kind of beautiful and dreamy. And the First Order has blown this hole through the door, which should be like this wound and this tragedy. But every time you see it and the sun streaming through it and Luke walking through it, it's suddenly like this portal to hope. This thing that was meant to be the final death of the Resistance is somehow also a beautiful beacon of hope. There's all these kind of competing images when I watch it. There's like, that's darkness, that's light, that's darkness, that's light, and they're right in between the two.
Love that. And on the the ghost of the rebellion hanging over all of it on this old rebel base, another part of the past coming there to face Kylo. No, I
Yeah.
love it. I love that. Yeah, that's why that shot. Yeah, the thumbnail of the fight might be Luke staring out at the walkers, which is just wonderful. But I love him walking through it in that great shot with the kind of a silhouette and the smoke. It's a great use of the environment.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we talked a lot about the environment affecting the story and the mood. I will also say that really, with Adam Driver's great Kylo Ren physicality, he should always be running on surfaces that allow him to slide a little bit.
Yeah. There you go.
So, what realities of filmmaking do you think about when you watch this duel?
I go to how they pulled us in, or again, maybe it was just me, at least me. You're just caught up in a third act final showdown trope, and you believe it. And there was even a second I thought when all the walkers fired, I was like, how could Luke survive this? What are they doing? Like, I just was so caught up in it. And I just think there's some little tricks along the way, and heard some of them. There's like, did he actually touch Carrie Fisher's hand? Was there distant? All these little details. And I just think that they knew what they wanted to try to do, to put the scene together from the editing and the sound and how it was shot and pacing. I think of those, the actual, making of this sequence, the actual shooting of it, and getting out in the world. It worked for me because I absolutely fell for it.
Yeah, no, me too. I think the performances are phenomenal, so I think a lot about that of just Adam Driver and Mark Hamill's really amazing performances.
Mm-hmm.
I think about the makeup art on Adam Driver's face to have that sort of. It looks like the dark side is bruising him from inside, like
Mm-hmm.
blood vessels are just bursting from fury and rage and confusion. So great, and Mark Hamill is just absolutely masterful. I am totally centered. There is no question. And then when I was watching it again this morning, it's just remarkable to me that I know that this is a ton of digital.
Mm-hmm.
From Mark Hamill's body movements to the environment, and I just don't feel it. I don't feel what CGI sometimes becomes criticized of it feels cold or distant.
Mm-hmm.
I am right there in the emotions of this scene. So this to me is just an example of a absolutely successful CGI sequence.
Right. No, I agree with that there. Yeah. It's always an interesting discussion around that. The computers are practical and everything it's all a wonderful mix, and something like this highlights how you can use it all wonderfully.
Yeah. Yeah. And then in terms of the sort of choreography, eagle-eyed fans, particularly I think Rey and Kylo fans have picked out that Kylo's sequences of slashes toward Luke are similar to Rey's practice on Ahch-To when she cuts the rock. And I think that it's great that that's there in Last Jedi to really underline their connection. But one of those moments that really is like, hey, dyad.
Yeah.
Builds really well to Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. Little building block.
Yep. So let's talk about moments of thrill and emotion. What are some for you?
I mean, it again just starts out with Luke walking to take out his laser sword and face the entire First Order. Everything about it, love that. So that sets up, though, I got to say, and I always kind of focus on the preamble, I guess, but that first walker getting into a position to fire with that metallic groan, it's just such a wonderful Star Wars little nerd chill moment of just, and I know those like gorilla sounds and everything that went into it. Total classic Star Wars design. Just love that. Love the tension there. So that starts the fight, and I'm already thrilled before we really get into it.
Yeah, I mean, really, when Luke just first walks out there, and there is the shot of him against the army, it's one of my favorite shots in Star Wars. Yeah. It's just great. Yeah. But yeah, I know. What I love about the little walker adjustment too is this. It's also just like it's totally George Lucas pulpy adventure serial of like, sure, I'm sure you could make up a technical reason of why that walker basically has to like roll its shoulder before it fires, but it's so about the flavor and the mood. It is not about logic or technology. Yeah. Like and I love it for that because it's organic, not mechanical, even though it's literally a machine. It's about storytelling. It's about making a choice that feels organic. Of wouldn't it be great if the gorilla walker kind of settled before it fired? Like it's so human. And that's what I love about Star Wars. Not that it makes perfect sense all the time.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Just one of those little details. So great.
Yep. Then getting into the actual confrontation, we already talked about it a little bit, but I just love that Kylo starts it with, did you come here to save my soul? How firm Luke is on the no. Just really setting the terms of the discussion of like, I am going to apologize. But again, two things can be true. I messed up. You really messed up. Yeah. You made some bad choices,
Yeah. I love it. I love Kylo's, I bet you are. I just one of those, that's
definitely on my list too. Cause I think the delivery of I failed you, Ben, I'm sorry. It's so honest and true. And then a couple of screenings I went to Kylo's response got a laugh because it's so petulant. I'm sure you are. It's so fast. It's so petulant. It's so not listening. It's like a 5-year-old.
Totally.
So what are some other moments for you?
I love, I call it the Matrix duck from Luke, which is great. But then the follow-up is actually what I like even a little bit more. It's a good 1-2 punch. It's just what I call like these pure baseball swings from Kylo after he misses him, where he's just like, he's so upset. He's so upset. And what the old man did this duck like, and he just like starts taking these full swings. It's almost that he doesn't even care if he's hitting him or not. He's just like, the anger's coming out. The anger, he's starting to lose it even more. I just love that little 1-2 punch.
Yeah, no, I refer to it as Luke's big limbo dodge. I really like that shot of showing how close it is to his nose, right?
Yeah,
And it has great tension when you're first watching it and going like, is he there? But then you also have that tension of like, Luke's really like, I can't just let the tip of my nose pass through that. I really need to keep this convincing. This is also the beginning of this fight is perhaps one of Kylo's best stomp ignitions. It's so petulant, in such a great contrast from Luke's, centered defensive posture, which, of course he has in the original trilogy. It's well described, that posture, in the Shadow of the Sith novel. That's his posture when you play him in Battlefront 2. So it's great to see that contrast between the petulant stomp and the defensive crouch.
Yeah, I do love a good Kylo stomp.
So good. I think for me, the probably the biggest emotional thrill is the speech from Luke, the amazing every word of what you just said was wrong. The rebellion is reborn today. The war is just beginning, and I will not be the last Jedi. It always hits me. It always gets me so emotional. The intercut with the heroes that it is applying to, particularly Rey. Luke's conviction that, mistakes happen. Violence is to be avoided. You don't want to perpetuate the fight, but sometimes you have to stand up. This whole, the way it's shot, the way it's edited, the way it's the way the physical duel is transitioning into just a total emotional duel. And this is in some ways the victory moment, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the moment where we, the audience, understand that Luke does. This is Luke Skywalker validates Star Wars.
Yeah. Big theme there. Big core of this film. Absolutely.
Yep. So it's a big one. It's a big one. What are other moments for you?
It's kind of the big final one I'll bring up. But what he says kind of leads into it. This final break of Kylo and this big charge and the miss. And there is this, not even a miss. He hits him, right? So there's this wonderful 3-part turn. It's one of my favorite Adam Driver moments. It is like, got him. Wait, did I? And let me slowly turn around and realize something's up. I just love it. I think it plays out well because also, especially going back to the early viewings or the very first one, I'm in that same spot as Kylo, right? I think I'm really... I'm not recognizing why Luke's here. I'm not seeing the lightsaber. I'm not picking up on the salt. I'm Kylo in this. And so I think it's just a great way to build up the reveal, which is also a big throw moment. But I just love that little moment.
Yeah, no, the slow turn is absolutely great, especially after just not hearing anything that Luke said.
Yeah.
Maybe I think it probably lodged in his soul because it's basically a very similar thing that Rey says to him at the beginning of Rise of Skywalker, like, killing me is just going to haunt you the way killing your father is haunting you. And not listening to that at all. The big baseball swing, as you said, total lack of any elegance of, the Jedi arts. But I feel like that slow turnaround is allowing the audience to be right in sync with Kylo, get just a little bit ahead of Kylo. But for me, I wrote down my final favorite moment is that final slow poke where he and I really appreciated exactly the editing choice when I watched it today of, by the time Kylo's turned around, the audience is going, something's not right. Luke has tricked him in some way. Is Luke maybe not there? And then the lightsaber goes through and his eyes flick up, and on the eye flick up is when we jump to the edit of Ascension, really, of Luke floating from the highest spot of the first Jedi Temple. It's and it's edited so well to have the eyes flicking up with realization from Kylo, leading us into this, huge applause moment. And what a great film where like an older man is floating. But it's clearly an image of victory. Huge applause.
Well, what I love about it too, and this is breaking it down even beat by beat by beat by beat, but the reveal of Luke on the island, the applause that did happen, and the joy that come from that was not maybe at the reveal, but at the confirmation of what we are realizing 2 seconds before before Kylo, like you said, we're ahead of Kylo. And so it's
Mhm.
like, you're right. Wait a second. And then it's like, that's it. That's the thing. I knew it the whole time. Yeah. I
Yep.
think it's part of the reaction.
Yeah. So powerful. So great. Any other moments that you want to talk about before we wrap up?
No. I think we hit them all there.
Yeah. So at the end of the battle, how do you think Kylo is affected? We've been in Kylo's head for a lot of this episode. Where do you think he's at?
I think he is more certain that he's got to do it the quote Kylo way. He can write some pamphlets on that, meaning he's just been absolutely played as a fool in front of Hux, the First Order, and anyone who thinks he's watching. Maybe he thinks Rey is watching on a monitor. I don't know, and he knows that he can't kill the past. Like literally, he knows he's wrong, and maybe even he'd love to send Mom a text. But he's so on unsteady ground. He's so unsettled. He's so angry that the only thing he can do is just say, I'm right, but louder. And that's kind of a lot of what's going on. He picks up those dice and they disappear. And then Hux is giving him the bad day at the office. So it's just, he knows everything, but it's only going to drive him forward, unfortunately, in a bigger way.
Yeah. I really love that the scream of no, right? When he realizes he's been had and like all of his fears are confirmed. His old Jedi master did know something he didn't. Hux knew something he didn't. Not that Luke was a force projection, but that he was being played, that he should have just charged forward,
Yeah.
All of his fears confirmed, right? His inability to kill the past and become what he wants to be. But then between the dice and Rey shutting the door on their connection, I think it leaves him in this great point of like, what do I want? Do I want to destroy it all? Do I want utter dominance, or what I really want connection?
Yeah.
Because I didn't get either of them. I think the fact that he's sort of a loser on two fronts at the end of this, of like, I'm sure I'm in charge of the First Order and I can, push into that as he's going to in between the films. But I didn't kill the past. I didn't crush everyone and prove my absolute dominance. And I don't have any connection that I maybe would have wanted with my father, with my mother, with Luke, and I don't have it with Rey. And I got nothing but Hux giving me the stink eye.
Yeah. I'm going to go hang out with my friends from college. We're going to get the band back together. I'm going to go run the galaxy, and then, threats emerge. So I better go get that helmet and put my shield on and destroy all threats to me. Yeah.
Yep. Raging across the galaxy. Great thoughts. So out of 10 lightsabers fully ignited, how many lightsabers do you personally give this duel?
I'm sticking where I was, 9 out of 10. And at least 2 of those points are for the themes and what's going on, because I do agree the fight itself is different and shorter than maybe you'd expect, or maybe at times even want. But I think just everything about this, everything we've talked about, the look, the feel, the stakes, the themes, the screams, the groans of the walkers, it is a 9 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, the sound of the blades, the staring, the posturing, all that. Yeah, I'm giving it 9 out of 10 as well. And I think there are a lot of things that make duels and fights powerful in Star Wars. And you can have the just sort of like raw, furious, epic in scope battle of Anakin and Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith. And that can be a huge, great example of what like the epitome of a lightsaber fight is. But this one is also the epitome of a lightsaber fight because it is boiled down just to the pure ideas of why are we fighting? What is a duel ultimately? It's a test of knowledge and skill. And this is Luke showing his absolute mastery at being a Jedi. He won this duel 8 different ways,
Yeah. Totally.
So big 9 out of 10. All right. With that, Ken, we are getting close to wrapping up our series on lightsaber fights. But for now, you want to let people know where they can find us.
It was an 18 out of 20 day, and it was a lot of fun discussing it. We are the Force Center Podcast. We can be found on Twitter at Force Center Pod. We're on Instagram and YouTube as well. You can subscribe over there and join us for our live monthly Q&A shows and more. Facebook page is Force Center Podcast. We're available on a lot of different spots. Just search, you'll find us. And if you want to give us a rating and review while you're there, we'd we'd love that as well. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/force center. And you can support us directly at patreon.com/force center. If you're there, you can be one of those supporters that submits a Power of the Light side. We do that on our shows, our question shows, if we get those from our Patreon supporters. Great stuff, great inspirational stories from Star Wars fans. You can follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to my website, kennapzok.com. We talked a lot about music. I do love music. I have a radio show called Pop Rockin' Radio on Mixcloud. You can link to it from my website. Joseph, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at Joseph Scrimshaw. And you can check out my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for links to all the other stuff I'm doing, including, as this episode is dropping, I'm in Minneapolis at the Great Convention Convergence. So if you are listening to a Star Wars podcast and then going to Convergence, come see my shows. All that information is on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. But for now, for myself, for Kylo's angry stomp, and for Ken, this has been Force Center.